Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome back to our webinars. Today we're going to be looking at running your year end in Sage 50 accounts. And we've got the team back on hand. We've got Abby and Michael in the background for any questions that you might have on today's topic. So please do feel free to use them throughout today's session. Okay, so first of all, we will start with our normal housekeeping. So just bear in mind, if you haven't been on one of our webinars before, you can't speak to us directly. If you do have any questions though, you are more than welcome to submit them across to us using the questions panel. So that is the icon that looks like a speech bubble with the question mark in the middle for you to send your questions across to us. Additionally, there is a handout for today's session, so if you want to take a copy of that, please do so using the icon that looks like a document with the folded corner there, and it will give you a copy of the slides for today. Okay, so this is the agenda for today's session. So first off, we are going to start off with a poll, and then we're going to go through some of the common questions that we get on year end, in particular around this time of year. Okay, it's really common for people to be running their year end around this time of year with a year end at the end of December. So we're going to try and answer some of those for you before we actually go into the demonstration and show you year end from start to finish. Along the way, we're going to try and answer as many of the questions that we get through to technical support at this time of year and highlight sort of key points for you. We will briefly touch on some of the optional tasks that you can do as well, tying in with your year end. However, we do have an entire series on these optional tasks running throughout January. Okay, so we are going to dedicate the time onto each of those topics. So if you do after this session think, you know, I'm ready to do my year end, but I also do want to have a look at the size of my data and looking at clearing some of the data out, then we do have some additional sessions that are available for you. We're going to talk about company archives again. I'm just going to briefly talk about them because we've got a dedicated session on that as well. And at the end, I will show you where you can find out all of the information on these upcoming sessions and also further support. So if you are doing your year end and you need that little bit more help, where you can find help available online. Like I said, we're going to do a quick poll first of all. So I'm going to pop that across onto the screen there now for you. There isn't a right or wrong answer to this. Okay, this is us trying to just gauge from you as a user when you think you are likely to run your year-end process in the software. So how long after the year-end ends are you actually likely to run the process? Okay, so are you going to do it immediately? You're going to try and do it within the next month? Do you think it'll take slightly longer, 1 to 2 months, 3 to 6 months, or more than 6 months? Now, like I say, there is no right or wrong answer here. We're not trying to catch anyone out. We're just trying to gauge that our training is being released at the right time for our customers when they're doing their year end. So I do like to try and just get a good portion of you voted. So I will just wait till we hit around 70%, which we're very, very close to. And there you go, we just bypassed it. So I'm just going to close that down. And hopefully this will just put your mind at rest a little bit there, that you're not the only one in your situation. So I will just share that poll if I can do. There we go, that's it sharing there. So the first one is within 1 month, so that was second place. First place went to 1 to 2 months, then 3 to 6 months, and not many of you are waiting more than 6 months, but you're not alone if you're finding yourself in that bracket, so do not worry about that. Okay, so what that does is it takes us nicely on to our common questions. These are common questions that we get through to our technical support lines. And I think we have got a question already around this. Yep, we've got 2 questions already coming through on this, so we're hopefully going to address those for you now. And this is, do I need to run the year end before I can start processing in the new financial year? So it's a really, really common question. So no, you don't need to run year end before you can process in the new financial year. Okay, you can continue to enter your transactions and complete your processing in the old financial year until everything is complete. So we do actually recommend that you complete all of your processing for that financial year and then run your year end. Okay, so that might it might take you 2 or 3 months to get into that position. Okay, the only things that will cause an issue with is things like your management reports. Okay, so your management reports won't move into the next financial year until you've run that year-end process. But there are sometimes ways around that depending on the version of your software. You may be able to run a transactional report, and they are available in our professional version of the software. So there are sometimes ways around that if you need to gather that information, or it might be that you can run other reports to get the information in the meantime. And at the end, it is quite common for people to run several months into the financial year before they run the year end. Okay, so don't panic, don't feel under any pressure from us that you need to run this. It's when you've completed your processing, that's when we recommend to do that. Now, the next one is, can I shorten or extend my financial year? Okay, now Sage works on a 12-month financial year, but you might be in a position you're trying to align with maybe your accountant or maybe another company that you're running. You're trying to make sure that the year ends are all the same. So what you might find is if they're on different financial years, you'll have to do a shortening or an extending of a financial year in order to bring them into sync with one another. Now, it is possible, but it is a workaround. So it's not a magic button that's just going to shorten the year end for you. We do need to tweak the software almost to do that for you. Now, we have popped a link to each of the articles, depending on whether you want to shorten or extend, on the handout for you so that you can actually look at the steps on that. And they do actually have videos on them, which you can use when you're doing the process. So you can actually sort of play it and pause it as and when you need to. So the link is in the handout there. Also, when I show you the additional help at the end, I will show you where you can find it on the Help Centre as well. So they're two really common ones. So we're going to look into the demonstration now. So we're going to break it into 3 steps. First of all, preparing for year end, running the year end itself, and post year end checks that you can do to make sure that that has gone through successfully for you. So in terms of preparing for the year end, the first thing we suggest is that you do complete all processing for the financial year. It is possible to do adjustments into a previous year if you have run the year end, but what it does mean is things like your profit and loss and balance sheet, those reports will have changed as a result of that. So we do recommend to complete all processing first. Next is to check your chart of accounts and resolve any errors in your chart of accounts. One of the steps that your year end will do is it will clear any profit and loss nominal codes, and that is determined by your chart of accounts. So if there's anything missing in terms of the chart of accounts, it may not clear those down and cause you issues further down the line. Don't worry, I will be demonstrating that in just a moment. And then we recommend to run your reports. So typical year-end reports are your management reports, so your trial balance, the profit and loss, your balance sheet, and maybe also your aged debtors and creditors reports. That allows you to see where you stand with your customers and your suppliers at the point of year end. But there may be other reports, okay, so that isn't an exhaustive list. Your accountant or your business might require other reports to be taken at the point of year end. And just before you do all of that, we just recommend as well just to take a backup of your data and make sure that the data is in fact error-free. So what we'll do is we will do a quick demonstration of that so you can see this all in action. So here I am in my data set. I have completed all my processing, and as you can see in the bottom corner, you can see my current start date is January 2024. Okay, so we want to advance that into 2025. The first thing I need to do though is I need to check that chart of accounts. Okay, so before I do any of my management reports, let's check that chart of accounts to make sure when we're running these reports, we're including absolutely everything. Now to do this, we can go into chart of accounts at the top of our nominal code screen. And within here, just bring this across, you will have a list of your charts of accounts. Now, I only have one, so I'm going to highlight that one and go into Edit. And in here, it breaks down my profit and loss and my balance sheet codes. So these two reports are based upon the code structure, which is in my chart of accounts. Now, the importance of this is when we run a profit and loss, all of the codes on our profit and loss, we want to be included. We don't want any nominal codes missing. Not only will it mean if they're missing that they're not going to be included on the profit and loss report, but when we run the year-end process, it clears down these nominal codes and transfers them across to our profit and loss account or our retained earnings account. So if we've got something missing from the chart of accounts, it means something isn't going to clear down for us of its profit and loss code. But also means if I've ran a profit and loss, it's effectively missing some of the values. So it's quite important to make sure at any point in time that we don't have any errors in the chart of accounts. So to check this, what I just need to do is go to check at the top, and you might get a lovely little message that just says no errors to report, which is great. Unfortunately for me, I do have the option to preview, so there is an issue with my chart of accounts at the moment. So I'm just going to run that to preview so you can see what's wrong there. So I've got two quite simple ones. I've got two nominal codes not represented. It may be that you've got codes that are overlapping ranges in the chart of accounts. What I have here is I have some not represented at all. Okay, so that means they're not being reported on whatsoever. So what I would need to do at this point is I need to look at these two codes, look at the relevant area for them, and I need to either add them to a range or expand a range to incorporate them, or create a range, create a brand new range. Now, I will not go into too much detail on this because, again, we have had a dedicated session on this. We don't have a live one just yet. We have got a recording available on this, which just explains how to insert a range so that you can get this looking right for you. But essentially what I would need to do is either expand one of these ranges here or add a range to include 4200. On my balance sheet, I need to do the same for 1205. I'd need to pop into the balance sheet, find the relevant area and create a range or add it to a range. Now what we are going to do today is we're going to assume that I have made that fix, okay? Now I do know, because I've set this data up intentionally, that they do not have a balance on them, okay? So this is not going to impact today's demonstration for you, but if they did have balances, this could impact our reports and also the clearing down process. So we're going to assume that I've fixed these and we've done the check and we've now got the message to say there's no errors to report, so we're happy with that. Okay, so that's your chart of accounts. At this point, that's where you can do things like your trial balance, your profit and loss, your balance sheet. Those reports are available in the nominal code screen. And also in customers, you've got your reports along the top here. So this is where you can find your aged debtors reports. Across here, aged debtors, and you've got a whole sort of range of different versions of that very one report. And the same, you can do that in suppliers for your creditors report too. So what we're going to do next is we're going to just take a backup of the data and make sure that that is an error-free backup as well. So before we run the year end, we want to make sure there's no errors in the data. So I'm going to do that by going into File and Backup. I'll just bring this across. And at year end, this is a good opportunity for you to do an all files backup, which includes everything. Okay, so things like your archives, layouts, report files, etc. It's good to periodically back those up, but you don't need to do them on an everyday backup. Okay, that's going to start to take up a lot of your disk space on your PC. So if you want to include all files, it might be just an annual all files backup you wish to take, then you can tick this box, and as you can see, it ticks all the boxes for you. Now again, in the interest of saving time for the demonstration, we're going to make some assumptions here. So I'm just going to untick the box there because it will add quite a considerable amount of time to today's webinar. But also what we're going to do is just change the file name very slightly to something like pre-year end. And that is because if you've got a file with hundreds of backups in there, you want to be able to easily locate your pre-year end one. Okay, so just change it very slightly, just so it's easy to find amongst all the others. So I'm going to say OK to that, and I'm going to say yes to checking the data. And what we're hoping it's going to come back with is no errors. Now, if we do have errors in the data, this is where we need to stop what we're doing. We do need to fix those before we run the year-end process. We do not recommend running your year-end whatsoever with errors in the data. Even general processing, if you find an error in your data, we don't recommend to continue processing. Get them fixed first before you continue. As you can see, I've got no errors, so I'm happy with that, and that's just running through my backup there. And once that's done, we'll be able to move on to step 2, which is actually running the year-end process. Okay, so running the year-end itself is in the form of a wizard. Quite straightforward. It gives us a list to work our way through, and some of them I've already done because I wanted to show you the manual way of doing them, but you can also do them within the wizard. It's entirely up to you how you want to approach those. So I'm just going to go into Tools, Period End, and then we have Year End here. And that takes us to our year-end wizard. Like I say, this is like a checklist of what you need to do at year-end. And as you can see, the first thing there, we've already done. Okay, so we're actually going to start this wizard here at Archive. Okay, so the Archive is a function in the software which is ticked by default. Okay, so we do recommend that you leave that ticked, and what that will do is it will take a read-only copy of your data at this very point in time for you to use for reporting purposes. Okay, what it will not do, and this is why people tend to untick it, is it will not delete anything. Okay, that is a separate process. Okay, but it's certainly something we recommend you do just before you do delete any data. So the archive is essentially going to give you a backup plan. Okay, so if you do finish your year end and then someone comes along and says, I want you to give me a profit and loss for January 2024, you've got the archive to do that in. Okay, so once we move on the financial year, it does mean that certain reports can no longer be accessed. The archive gives us the ability to still do that. Okay, so I'm going to leave the archive as it is. If I click on archive location, you'll see I can't change the location, but what I can do is I could change things like the archive folder or the description if I needed to. I was just recognizing that I've done this one quite a few times, so we're just going to say, just going to change that name very slightly. There we go. So just recognizing that I did a year end just before Christmas on the same data set there. So as you can see now, it's letting me do that archive there. So it's going to take an archive for me. So next, we're going to move on to the year end options. And the first one there is budgets. Okay, so budgets. This is a great option if you're maybe using budgets already, standard budgets, and you want to continue to use them, or if you're looking to introduce budgets. So what this will allow you to do is it will allow you to either copy this year's actuals as a budget for next year, or if you have been using budgets, you can copy this year's budgets into next year. So if we tick the box here and give you the options here, you can see if you hadn't used budgets before, you could use the current year actuals and you could say, look, I want to do 10% better than next year. So you could pop on 10%. If you have used budgets and you just want to push that budget a bit more, then you can tick the box there and again pop an increase on. And you can do that for nominal budgets and also for stock budgets. If you don't want to use budgets at all, then that's absolutely fine. You can leave the box unticked and it won't do anything for you. Something else for you to address maybe further down the line if you wish to use that feature. The next one is the date to appear on the year-end journal. Now this should always be the last day of the financial year, and as you can see, that has been entered automatically, so I don't need to change anything here other than just check that that is correct. And then I do have another optional here, which is preventing new transactions from being entered before this date. So once you've done your year end, you probably want to stop people posting back into that financial year, okay? Or at least make it more difficult for them to do so that it makes them aware that they're posting into a closed year. So what you can do is enter a lock date. So again, mine's switched on and it's going to prevent any postings into December or before. Okay, so depending on your access rights, some people will just be completely stopped from processing. Others will get a message to say you can bypass this, however, you're posting into a previous financial year. And that just depends on your access rights. Okay, so the last section here is literally just giving me a list of what it's going to do when I click this option at the bottom to run year end. So it's going to move my financial year on to 2025. It's going to transfer the balances from my profit and loss accounts onto the retained earnings nominal code, which by default is 3200. And it's also going to reset those profit and loss nominal codes back to 0 so that we're only reporting on this year's figures. It's also going to take an archive of the data. It's going to create nominal and stock budgets because I've got the option ticked, and it will lock my software. So I'm going to click Run Year End. And this is where you can see it rolling through the nominal codes there. Yours might take a bit longer, okay? Mine has zipped through them because my data set is tiny. If I'm honest, sometimes on mine you don't even see it rolling up the nominal codes. But yours might take some time because you will have been processing throughout the year, and if you've got lots of transactions, there'll be lots of rolling up to do. So that might be where you click and go and grab a cup of tea or something. When it's complete, you will get this message for the year-end report. Now I'm going to show you what this looks like because this report here is a one-time report. The information in this report can still be extracted. It might be in a slightly different format. Okay, so it's a one-time report. I would probably recommend just saving a copy of it. So I'm going to do it to preview. And as you can see, it's quite straightforward. It's just a list of all the journals it has done during that year-end process. So it's cleared down all of these profit and loss nominal codes, got all of the journals here, and the balancing journal at very end there, just to balance that all out, has gone on to 3200, which is my retained earnings code. That is the code that's selected by default. It's cleared those down. So I could export that if I wanted to save it onto my desktop or onto a different location if I need to. But once we close, we just get the message to say the new financial year is 2025, and that is the end of the year-end process. Obviously, what we need to do is now just do some checks to make sure that that has gone through successfully for you. So the first thing is let's check we're in the right financial year now. So in the bottom right corner, you can see now where it did previously say January 2024, it now says January 2025. So that's great, that's a good sign. The next thing we want to do is just to check those profit and loss codes have run cleared down. So to do that, we're going to pop into nominal codes. I'm going to go into trial balance. And we're going to run this to preview just so you can see that on the screen. And we're going to, from the drop down, select the very top option, which is brought forward. Okay, so that's brought forward. Select it there and OK. And what that should do, if everything's gone through smoothly, is this should only show me balance sheet codes and not profit and loss codes. So this is the big reveal here. Let's double check. Okay, there we go. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. So mid-year, on a profit and loss, you would see codes right the way through from 0010 right the way through to 9999. As you can see, we've cleared everything down as part of that year end onto 3200. So that's exactly what we want to be seeing. Okay, so that's great. That's a good sign there. The next thing we want to do is just do a post year end backup. So again, just like the pre-year end one, I'm going to go and File and Backup. And we're just going to change the name on that again very slightly, just to post year end, because it makes it much easier to find once we have a long list of backups there. So I'm just going to, and we're going to check that data. Now, it's really important to check your data after the year end, okay? Because sometimes if there's an issue with the year end, so for example, if you're running it across the internet or a network and that drops out at any point, what that can cause is an unbalanced journal. With that unbalanced journal, that means something's gone wrong, okay? We should never have an unbalanced journal or a one-sided journal. So that means something quite fundamental's gone wrong. And if you start to process on that, like, you're going to cause some problems for yourself with reprocessing. So if you do get any errors, or you get a message that says you must restore a backup, that is the case. That's exactly what you will need to do. Okay, so please do not continue processing with that message in place. Okay, so as you can see, I'm in exactly the same position as before. No errors. I've got the same number of warnings and the same number of comments there. So I'm quite happy with that. And the backup has just gone through for me. So I'm quite happy that I've got everything there. So that takes us to the end of the whole year-end process. I'm going to pop back to the slides for a moment though, because there's still a few things we need to cover for you. So I'm just going to pop back to these slides. There we go. So I've got details of those post-year end checks for you and how to run that profit and loss, the brought forward trial balance. So exactly what criteria to use, all in the handout there for you. Okay, so we're just going to talk about the optional tasks very briefly. Okay, so what we've done there is we've run a year end, and what that hasn't done is remove any transactions, remove any records, clear out any data. In fact, if anything, running the year end has added a few more transactions to our transaction list because it's done those journals for us. So what you might be thinking is actually starting to build up quite a lot of data in my live data, okay? If you've got, say, 10, 15 years in your data that's live, it means when you're searching through records, you're searching through all of that data each time. So the archive is a great feature for taking a copy of those older records for you so that you can always go back and revisit them. But what you might want to do post-archive is look at clearing out the data in different areas. Okay, so you might want to do things like a clear audit trail. So clear audit trail will remove transactions from your audit trail listing or the transactions window, but it also removes it from the history on your customers, suppliers, nominal and bank accounts as well. So once you've cleared those records, so if you've got really old customers and they've got old history on them, if you manage to remove that history or that activity, then you can also delete those records. You can start deleting customers, suppliers, nominal and bank accounts as well. Also, you can look at clearing stock. So it might be that you've got lots of old stock no longer in use. So you might want to look at doing a clear stock and delete stock. So we're looking at that one on Friday. And also invoices and orders. You might not necessarily want all of them live in your live data set, but you can have them in the archive to look back on if you need to. So as I say, these are all optional. You can pick and choose which ones you want to do. Normally deleting customers, suppliers, nominals and bank records is dependent on the audit trail, but the others aren't dependent on one another. So you can pick and choose which ones you do. And like I say, throughout January, we're going to show you each of these options. Try and make it as easy as possible and as unscary as possible for you. So there is recordings, but we're also going to do them live so that you know you've got someone on hand to answer any questions you may have. As I mentioned, we've also got a dedicated session on Company Archive, okay, and really trying to make it clear what the archive can and can't do. I just want to very quickly show you where you can access the archive, okay, because that kind of ties into the session. So if, for example, you were in that position where you've just finished the year end and someone comes along and says, I need that profit and loss from last year, and you can't locate the file you took earlier and you saved, then you can go back to the archive. So you can go into File and Open, and then Company Archive, and that will then give you a list of your previous archives. So you can see there's the one we've done today. What we can do is open that and log in with the login details that applied at the time the archive was taken. So that's great for me now because I've just taken it. But if you do have an archive here that is maybe a few years old, you might need to remember what password was applied. Okay, don't worry if you can't remember it, our team will be able to help you with that if you can pass through security there. So please just check that. So I'm just going to go quickly in for you so you can see very quickly what it looks like, because it looks just like your data, and this is why for me this is a better option than restoring a backup. Restoring a backup in the past meant you restored it into a live data set. Okay, with version 30 however, you can now restore into practice data. Okay, so there is an alternative, but this is a safe method. It doesn't restore any data, it's just sitting there. You can come in, run your reports. So you can just go into reports as normal. It looks like your normal data set, and you can tell it's an archive by the messaging at the top here. Once you're done, you just go back to File and Open, Company Data, and you can get back into your live data. So it means it's just handy, it's there for you. You just need to log in as if it was another company. Restoring just means you have to find the right backup, restore it, so it can take a little bit more time. Quick question there is, when you update to Sage to the next version, do you lose your archives? I'm on version 31, don't seem to have any archives. So no, you shouldn't lose them. What should happen is if you try to open them, it will convert them just like it would your live data. So it's possible that maybe it's been done on another PC. If you're on a network, it might be one of your colleagues have done it and they've saved it locally, or they haven't been taken. So it might just need a little bit of exploring onto that one, but it should absolutely pull through archives from different versions. Like I say, it will ask you to convert them, and that's why an all files backup's quite handy sometimes, because it actually takes a copy of your archive prior to conversion. So if there's any issue with the conversion, you've not lost that archive. So take an all files backup or an archive only backup just before you convert any archives. I'm just going to log back in. I will show you how to do that archive only backup because that's probably quite handy. So I'm just going to go into File and Backup as normal. And I showed you how you could add all files. But if you were just going to open up some archives that are in older versions and you wanted to back them up first, what you could do is just untick data and take the archives only, company archives. There we go. Okay, so that would allow you to take an archive only backup. So Janet, if you have moved on to a new PC, if you do still have access to that old PC and access to that old data set, you could potentially log in, see if you can get an archive only backup from that old system, if that's possible. Great question just come through there. How are cancelled transactions removed from the audit trail? Okay, so that is our clear audit trail session. So it's actually probably a nice transition into my next step here, which is talking about our upcoming webinars. So if you go to sage.co.uk/webinars, like I have here, this takes you to our page. So it's sage.co.uk/webinars with the S on the end there. This takes you to not only our live page, but our recordings. So if you can't wait for the live session, you can find recordings, and we have done that session quite a few times. If we go into live though, what you will see is we've got 2 sessions of Clear Audit Trail alone coming up, okay? So it means we're on hand for any questions you may have. So the next one is tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. and we are doing it again later in the month. We appreciate it's first week back. Everyone's got lots on at the moment. So if you can't join us tomorrow, we're also doing it on the 22nd, and that will remove transactions from the transactions window. Okay, so that's the Clear Audit Trail process. Now, in addition to that, we're looking at VAT. Lots of people trying to submit today or this week. So we've got VAT this week, and then also clearing things like your customers, suppliers, nominal codes and bank accounts, covering that on Wednesday and again later on in the month. Same with invoices, orders and quotations, and company archives that we've mentioned there, we're doing on Thursday and again later on in the month there. Okay, so please do take a look because we've got lots of them coming up. We've even got a brand new one on the data management tool, which we have not done yet. So there is a new option there for the data management tool. So that's an interesting one to join. But also what we do have coming up at the beginning of February is our next badge, which is on banking. Okay, so if you're wanting to earn our next badge, our digital badge that you can use and share with your colleagues or future employers, then you can join us for our banking badge. And we are doing this series of sessions across 3 weeks, so plenty of opportunity to meet the criteria to earn your badge. So again, that's all on the same page there. Okay, I'm going to pop onto the Help Centre. Again, I want to show you where you can find additional help. So if you go to sage.co.uk/help, which I'll just find for you in 1 second, just bring that across. That takes you to our Help Centre. Now, if you select the software, which is Sage 50 Accounts, and what we have in here is lots of different options, one of which is financial year end. Okay, so if you go into financial year end, then within here, we've got the steps of preparing, running, housekeeping tasks, and also common queries. We've also got videos and free training in here as well. So we've got links on to Sage University, and also we've got some videos in here too. So there's lots of help and support. So somebody at the beginning did ask for help on how to shorten or extend the year end. These are the options here. We've got videos on there that will talk you through it step by step. Okay, so I'm just going to see if we can help with some questions in just a moment, but I'm just going to pop back to the slide for one moment. There we go. Okay, so there is a quick question there that says, is there any way to undo a year end if you've locked it but now decided you'd rather not? So I don't know if that's a merge of 2 questions, but essentially a lock date can be applied at year end, but you can unlock it too. So I'll show you that one, cover that one off. So lock date can be applied during year end, but it can be applied at any point in time as well. So it doesn't have to be part of the year end. So you can do that through settings and then lock date. Okay, in here, got lock date settings. Okay, so you can switch it on or off very simply with the tick box there. Okay, so you could come in today on the 6th of January and say, I don't want anyone processing beyond the 5th of before the 5th of January. I could tick the box and pop in the date myself. Okay, so you don't need to undo year end to remove that lock date. If you do want to undo year end, the best option is to get onto that straight away, restore a backup and go back to that point in time. Okay, now sometimes that's not always possible. There is manual ways of doing so. You can change the financial year back and then manually transfer all the journals back, but we tend not to do that unless it's sort of an extreme circumstance. So if it's just to undo the lock date, settings and lock date should help you with that. Now again, we have got a recording on lock date, so we have spent 45 minutes alone on lock date as well, talking you through the different options and the different settings depending on your access rights. Okay, quick question there. So this is probably a good one to answer. Does this process work similarly in, that's a very hard word to do on the first day back after Christmas. Similarly, in older versions of Sage 50 Professional. Now, in my time, I've been here nearly 14 years now, it has been very similar. I can't remember where the cutoff was where it changed. It hasn't changed hugely. Okay, so if you are using a slightly older version, you will probably find that your year end is very much the same. We're probably going back quite a few years to a point where we had to change the program date first. But the general process has been pretty much the same the whole time I've been here. So you'd have to be using quite an old version for it to be different to that. So yeah, I would assume with the version numbers that we're sort of supporting at the moment, you'll find it very, very much the same as what it is, what we've demonstrated today for you. Okay, let's do a quick time check there. There we go. We're nearly at the end of the session there. It's gone so quickly today. If you've got any final questions, please do get them across to us. We've got a few more moments just before we'll end the session there. I'm just going to pop back to the slides for one more moment there, because I do just want to let you know that obviously if you are having any issues with year end, or you do want a little bit more support running through year end, or any other of the features in the software, that we do offer one-to-one bespoke training. Okay, so if you feel like you would like something a bit more bespoke to you, your needs and your business needs, we can do bundles like stock control, construction industry, banking, and also if you've upgraded to Sage Professional and you found yourself with some new features and you want to get to grips with those, then this is a great option for you. So if you do find yourself in that position, then you can drop us an email using the email at the bottom of that page there, and we can give you a quick call for a personalised quote on that training. Okay, so I don't think there's been any questions in the last minute or two. So I think we'll look to draw the session to an end. So like I say, we've got loads of sessions coming up. So we really do hope you will join us on those sessions over the next few weeks. And like I say, we've got the next badge coming in February. So please watch out for those as well. In the meantime, I think we'll end it there. So thank you to Michael and Abby, and take care, and we will see you on another session really soon. But bye for now.